I'm sure that it's
I'm
been
not
covered,
telling him what
Debbie.
he's forgotten before he goes. That's his family doing that.
All right, guys, so,
He said, well, you took her.
so, we've got, this is a pretty special service because, it's the last one before Ryan goes abroad for Japan. So, we're gonna keep him in our prayers as we go through and his exciting journey is about, ahead of him. So keep Ryan in your prayers for the next 4 or 5 months and especially on Saturday you're flying, right? So keep him, out from Saturday. Also, we got some, go ahead, announcements. The announcements, let's see, tomorrow we got chapel chat at 11. We also have tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Charles Burton will be here. It's when the MLK convocation was canceled due to weather. This is he was able to come back tomorrow, so we'll be having that at the All Chapel at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. Conscientious Conversations, we were kind of wrestling with doing it Wednesday because of Easter week, but we're going to do it Thursday at 8, which actually will probably start about 8:15, you guys, because I want to go to Monday, Thursday service at 7 p.m. So we'll probably start about 8:15, Conscientious Conversations. That's at the Weeks House. Islamic Center visit, the date has changed. Originally, I had you guys going on Good Friday. We're not doing that. We're going on the week of the Friday after that. So it's April 5th. Synagogue worship April 12th. Pie the Pastor is going to be April 2nd. And Fatima was here, and I forgot to ask her what time she wanted to schedule that. It's going to be in the afternoon. I think like 2 to 4 or something. I'll be in the quad, and you can buy a pie me. April 8th, Kelly Ingersoll, a dear friend of mine who's the pastor at First Christian Church in Macomb, is going to come up and do worship. We're going to do worship together, have a dialectic sermon. For those of you who were with us last semester when Reginald came and we did that, that's what we're going to do. And then the week after that, Lorna just got her approval for the presbytery. So we're going to put her to work. And April 15th, she'll be doing the dialogue serving with me, and we'll be kind of talking about it. So it's fantastic stuff. Trying to think anything else, Lena? Lena was on Instagram today, so if you got Instagram with the MC Spiritual Life, go check it out. She did a fantastic job. And next week is Fatima, and then the week after that is Kelsey. So that's what we got going for announcements. Any other announcements that we need to talk about? Anything else, guys? I will shoot emails out this week because we've got so much going on. And I'm an email guy. I know some of you guys don't check your emails very often, but check them so we'll get through it. All right, the quote for worship today. Bear with me. You'll probably get a lot of Gandhi. I'm reading the book Gandhi and Jesus right now, and so I'm sure you'll get a lot of Gandhi. But this is one that caught my eye. As we go into Holy Week, we're going to do a kind of a passion service this week, but Lena and I spoke about it and thought we're not going to rush through everything, so we're going to celebrate the Palm Sunday, the entrance into Jerusalem. Gandhi said, "A man who was completely innocent offered himself as a sacrifice for the good of others, including his enemies, and became the ransom of the world. It was the perfect act." And of course, he's talking about Jesus in that sense. Ryan, did I give you one? Well, if you sit there, you can just read it. But there you go. No. And so Ryan is going to lead us in our call to worship.
Let all creation shout.
Let us wave the palm branches high. Jesus is coming.
He comes in humility to claim God's own.
May he claim us this day and heal our hearts.
Hosanna to the Son of David.
Hosanna to the blessed Son of God. Amen.
All right, questions we're going to talk about today. How do we judge success? And what I mean by that is, when you see success, what does it look like? Is it material success? Is it spiritual success? How do you consider success to be defined in your life? And then a real simple one, is suffering always a bad thing? You know, like questions today. So, so go ahead and break, oh, actually, we got a pretty small group today, so do you guys wanna do a large group discussion, or do you wanna do it in a small group? It's up to you guys. Wanna break off? How about we do it together? Just kind of talk together, so. What are some things, let's do it this way. Tell me, worldly, spiritually, what have you, how do people judge success? What are some things that come to mind when you hear success? Aiden?
In like the regular, well, like regular world or something without like any influence, the first thing that usually comes to most people's minds of success would probably be like a bunch of money.
Mhm.
Jeff Bezos probably.
Money is a huge gauge of success for lots of people, isn't it? If you have money, you're successful. If you're not, you're not. What are some other things that define success? Go ahead, Aiden. I'm not letting other people talk to you.
Being considered like a super exemplary, like having a big title, like, oh, I'm an NBA player. You're considered very successful at basketball because you are the best of the best of the best.
That absolutely, titles matter, right? In the real world, titles, success. I can speak of this because my title's like 3 sentences long. It drives me bonkers. In fact, I've never used the whole thing. So, in fact, I don't know if I can even tell you the whole thing. I'm the chaplain and the director of spiritual life and the Lux Center for Christian Leadership and something.
I thought it was just Reverend John Huxtable.
Technically, it'd be Reverend Dr. John Huxtable.
Reverend
Hey, you set that up great, right?
My bad, doctor.
No, you're good. It's but no, it is. Titles matter in a lot of things, and one of the things that I have to be really careful with. I was at this conference last week and had a wonderful conversation with a chaplain from a school in Asheville, North Carolina, and being female, she is very laid back and very comfortable, but she always wants to make sure she's announced with her title, because, and I never thought about it, and it was a fantastic conversation, because she was telling me how, especially being a woman in the clergy, not sharing that title is a pretty big sign of disrespect. I mean, and so, or calling Miss to a reverend, right, is not, and by the way, the reason I share this is because nobody would ever call me Mr. before they'd call me Reverend. It would not happen. And there's only one reason why. That, because of the gender thing, right? If I was just getting, now if somebody might mess with me, but, but in overarching things, female clergy have it much worse with the title stuff than male clergy. And so we have to recognize that, because that's something we have to change in our life too. So what else? Titles, money, what else defines success, you guys?
Achievement.
Achievement, right? Exactly. Achievement's a huge thing. Because if you're not achieving something, what are you doing?
Being a couch potato.
Sitting, right? You're static. And in our culture, being still is not looked at as a grand thing.
Because anyone can do it.
Yeah, and contemplation in the spiritual world, contemplation oftentimes is thought of as lazy. Is it? Absolutely not. In fact, we need more of it. But because it's not achieving something accordingly, you know, I just had a conversation with somebody today about the campus and some of the things that we want to implement next year going forward. And I said you can't assess them like you do traditional stuff, because there isn't bullet points to stop at, right? They're not achievement levels, right? What you'll find is relationships will build out of that, and there's no way of gauging that on a measurable scale. But what it is a transforming of the community, right? And so those kind of things you can't do. But if you have a certificate after your name, right, Robert? I mean, that's the big thing. I mean, growing up, you know, I mean, my grandfather was one that never came to anything of ours, right? As far as, because his thing with sports was he was jinxing us if he came and watched it. That was his way of just not coming, right, kind of thing. But he always had that thing. But when I got my first degree, he told me, he said, I'm not missing that because you've achieved something amazing, right? In his eyes, I was successful all of a sudden, right? That's a great one, Robert. What else makes us successful? Right?
Popularity.
Popularity. Especially now with you guys' generation, right?
Logan Paul.
How many likes do you got? Right? Is Logan Paul the one that's fighting Mike Tyson?
No, it's Jake Paul.
Yeah, he's gonna get
It's his
killed.
younger brother, Jake. Jake's the one who's stuck with boxing. He's for some reason actually okay at it.
Yeah, I'm waiting because Mike Tyson is 58 years old and I don't think he has a chance against him.
No, Mike's winning.
But there's a perfect example, right? Is an influencer. I mean, there was no career when I was growing up to become an influencer. You know, that wasn't, you know how you became an influencer? You became a professor, a teacher, you know, kind of thing. That was influence, you know. Now it is.
Radio hosts are private influencers.
Yeah, they are. That, Brian?
I was also going to say, we live more in a time of popularity where it lasts a week and we garner all the attention that we need for that time. We want that top of the charts for that period of time, if not forever, before that goes away.
And you just hit an important thing, right? So when success is judged in that way, how long do you stay successful often? It can be kind of temporary, can't it? Because it can be quickly pulled out from underneath you. Because essentially it's a popularity contest. And when you're really popular, what happens usually?
You got haters.
Somebody wants to, yeah.
As JC
That
would
wasn't
say.
how I put it, but
JC
yeah, there you go.
JC would say it's a big hater.
Brian, that's fantastic. So do you want to zoom in Monday nights? It'll be Monday morning, your turn, your time. Or actually,
We'll figure that
Tuesday
out.
morning, your turn. Yeah,
We'll figure that out as we go.
I'm going to miss Ryan, something awful, but I'm very excited for him. So those are some really impressive ways of success, right? What are some signs of somebody being successful in their faith journey? What do you think marks that?
It depends on person to person because everyone starts off at a different point usually. When they want to like start really focusing on it, or maybe part of it, their faith journey is to start focusing on it, and that's a big achievement for some people. So for me, it's like I've been working on using the Lord's name in Monmouth, and it's been going pretty well. Instead of saying God damn it, I say gosh darn it, and it sounds a lot nicer.
It's little increments, right?
Yeah.
What are some things that come to mind when you think of a successful, faithful person? I mean, what are some qualities? Things. And okay, so what is it, Aiden, that you point at me and say, I'm a successful, faithful person?
Well, I always see your emails, and they're always full of a lot of hope and good teaching. You're always trying to just spread the good word that you believe in, and you try to make sure that everyone around you is very comfortable and doesn't feel pressured to like be here, but like you're always very happy with people you come.
And so you just have some things, right? Hope, faith, comfort, inclusion, right? Those are some pretty important characteristics that we find in our faith journey. And so, like for me, I look at it very similarly. This week I spent in Atlanta. So when I got some breaks in my conference, I took a walk to like the historical MLK district. And I got to see Sweet Auburn in Atlanta, you know, which I didn't even know was a thing until I read about it. And it was a huge, huge district where during the Civil Rights Movement, right? I got to see the mural of John Lewis on a wall, right? And to me, John Lewis is an absolute portrait of success in the faith journey, right? And the reason being is he carries those qualities: hope, faith, positivity, and inclusion.
And he was doing it since he was 18.
And he was doing it, and probably long before that, because he was preaching to chickens. If you ever get a chance to read his book, read it, because he had me stuck as soon as I read that he'd go out and preach to the chickens when he was feeding them as a kid. And I love that story. that,
I preached to myself in the car because I got told by two different pastors that they want to see me in a pulpit one day.
and so okay, so that's it. So what kind of characteristics do you want to shoot for? If you want to lead people, what kind of characteristics are important to hold for each other?
Probably a lot of passion for it, which I do have. A passion to help others see the light and to help them through tough times that they might be going through, and to really teach lessons that maybe not everyone always knows about, or things that they need to know about, but just spreading awareness for it.
So we spread awareness, and that leads us to this next question, right? Is suffering always a bad thing? We live in a society that wants instant gratification. We like to feel happy. We like to feel, successful. We want to feel all those things. But what about suffering? Is there a place where we can understand that suffering can be a good thing?
I've never seen a Olympic lifter who looks very happy while they're achieving their greatness of lifting the heavy thing above their head.
It's a great example, right? When you play sports or play the piano or play an instrument, unless you're one of those beautifully gifted people that just picks it up. I played basketball all my life, and I shot about 3,000 free throws every other day of the summer to become a better free throw shooter, right? And so forth. I didn't really care to be out there that long sometimes, but I was going to be so there's suffering that takes place there, but you're suffering to achieve. And so as we look at Holy Week and entering Holy Week, think about it. Do we have suffering during Holy Week? We have some obvious ones, right?
Betrayal.
We have the betrayal of Judas, but we have the suffering of Jesus, of course. Who else suffers that week?
Anyone who was the disciples around him, because they obviously they love Jesus a lot, and a lot of his followers.
Yeah.
The people who got to see Jesus were very sad to see that they're a friend basically, and that he was going to be killed for a crime that that a lot of people thought was bogus.
Well, and there you go. That right. So we've got Jesus being crucified under false premises. I guess actually that's the wrong statement, because they weren't false. He pissed the Roman Empire off is what he did, right? And why did he do that? Because he was letting them know that it was more important to be compassionate than dominant, right? Which is a whole different ballgame. And we've had some of this in our own culture, right? Suffering. We're going to watch a video on John Lewis. Do you think he suffered for the betterment of all people? That's where suffering can be a positive, right? I'm not a masochist. I'm not telling you all to go out and suffer just intentionally. But I am saying that too often we end up, we don't want to rock the boat sometimes in churches or in institutions or issues, because that makes us uncomfortable. But sometimes we got to be uncomfortable to make the difference, right? We got to be okay with rocking the boat when the boat excludes sections of society, right?
Suffering, in a way, becomes even the best teacher at times as well.
Absolutely. Talk a little bit more of that, Brian.
So, this isn't my way of tying it into faith as it is in my own. My suffering comes from my personal life of what I'm doing and how much I'm spending it. And it's a lot that I'm spending in my personal life, and the responsibilities that I have, the work that I do, the activities that I'm in, the people that I'm with. Sometimes I can overburn, I can injure myself, I can find mental blocks within myself, and it's suffering for me at times, but in a way, that suffering helps me grow even more. Grow not only as myself, but also for others around me and for the work that I'm doing as well.
I like that. Have you guys ever heard, I never learned anything new when I won? That's a statement Michael Jordan made about it. I never learned a lesson when I won.
Well, I would also say that, sometimes we suffer when we join someone else in the midst of their grief. And a lot of people, that's why they avoid people who are in the midst of grief, or tell them to suck it up, or to push through, you know.
Why aren't you there yet?
Yeah, exactly, you know, come on, get over it, kind of thing. Because we don't like to be reminded of the bad stuff. Yet what that person may need is someone who's willing to just sit with them in their grief and say, it's okay. You know, take the time that it takes. And so suffering alongside someone is one of the best things that you can do to show your love for them.
And that, absolutely dead on. That's a huge trait of a successful, faithful journey too, is being able to have empathy for each other and walk with each other down those paths. You know, one of my favorite sayings that my pastoral care professor taught me was God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Meaning, we have to listen twice as much as we talk, but more importantly, knowing that we aren't called to have all the answers, we're called to walk with. And that is a journey that takes place in contemplative moments in your life, because you've got to be willing to be still and comforting when it's not a quick fix, if that makes sense. I love that part. Thank you for that. That's a fantastic. Any other things anybody wants to say about suffering? All right. You're on, Lena.
As we enter this most sacred time, let us be able and willing to still ourselves and listen for your voice, O God. Strengthen us to embody an openness to embrace one another and to connect with one another in order to form the best community possible. Let us embody a willingness to choose to follow your example of servanthood rather than following a need to be served. As we come to this time, we lift all those who are struggling. Let them find peace in your most precious grace. Help all creations find times of rest and contemplation to grow more comfortable with one another. Inspire our leaders to find resolutions to all violence and teach us all to seek to grow in a greater understanding of nonviolence. We pray for those who were impacted by the violent act of terror in Moscow. Help all who are grieving and healing to find comfort and solace in your presence in their lives. Instruct us on the importance of releasing ourselves from the bondage of consumerism. Let us begin a journey of simple living that helps sustain life for all creation. All of this we ask in those words that you have taught us to pray. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. All right, Aiden?
Alright, we have scripture reading today from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 11, verses 1 through 11. When they were approaching Jerusalem at Bethphage and Bethany, near the Mount of Olives, he sent 2 of his disciples and said to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately as you enter it, you will find tied there a colt that has never been ridden. Untie it and bring it. If anyone says to you, 'Why are you doing this?' just say this, 'The Lord needs it, and will send it back here immediately.'" They went away and found a colt tied near a door, outside in the street. As they were untying it, some of the bystanders said to them, "What are you doing, untying the colt?" They told them what Jesus had said, and they allowed them to take it. Then they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks on it, and he sat on it. Many people spread their cloaks on the road, and others spread leafy branches they had cut in the fields. Then those who went ahead and those who followed were shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our ancestor David. Hosanna in the highest heaven." Then he entered Jerusalem and went into the temple. And when he had looked around at everything, as it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12.
Okay, now, the John Lewis video is next.
We have come too far. We have made too much progress, and we are not going back. We are going forward. I saw the signs that said white men, colored men, white women, colored women. I tasted the bitter fruits of segregation and racial discrimination. I heard the words of Dr. King on radio. Seemed like he was saying to me, John Lewis, you too can do something. They came toward us, beating us with nightsticks, and bullwhips, trapping us with horses, and releasing their tickets. This is me here. We were elected to lead, Mr. Speaker. We must be headlights and not taillights. We cannot continue to stick our heads in the sand and ignore the reality of mass gun violence in our nation.
Time and again, he faced down death so that all of us could share equally in the joys of life. That's why all these years later, he is known as the conscience of the United States Congress, still speaking his mind on issues of justice and equality. And generations from now, when parents teach their children what is meant by courage, the story of John Lewis will come to mind. Gift John Lewis was. We are also lucky to have had him walk with us for a while and show us the way.
So Palm Sunday is one of those real important days in the liturgical calendar. But did you know that there were two parades that day? There are two entries into Jerusalem that day. One by Jesus on a donkey, and the other by the Roman Empire coming into Jerusalem. The donkey, the war horse. One on one side, one on the other. And the challenge is which parade do we choose to go to? Which parade do we choose to live into? Oscar Romero, everybody know who Oscar Romero is? Okay, Oscar Romero was the Archbishop of San Salvador, and he was executed by guerrillas, or by the government actually. When he stood and he said the poor deserve to be treated equally. And so he said this: in recent days the Lord has inspired in me a great desire for holiness. I've been thinking of how far a soul can ascend if it just lets itself be possessed entirely by God. I absolutely love that quote, and the reason I chose it for Palm Sunday is this is our call on Palm Sunday. It's to entirely let ourselves be possessed by God. Entirely. To enter in on a donkey and call that success, and to challenge the war horse. Because the war horse means violence and oppression and exclusion. So, until we are ready to let go of that and not be defined by possessions, we will never see and bring forth the kingdom. So, are we going to choose a parade of empire or a parade of palms? Parade of empire. You can guess what all. I cut off the E on my slide. But we can guess what all this is, right? But these are the characteristics we talked about, right? With what success is: power, greed, oppression, status. What are some other things that this war horse parade would have resembled or assembled or told the people who were watching this parade? What do you think were some of the characteristics that were coming out that day from that type of parade? Could you touch him?
No.
He's pretty untouchable, wasn't it? I think that's going to be important. Did you know where you stood as far as the status of things when you saw this parade coming in?
Below.
Always, right? So, when you see this happening, and you've got all this stuff going on, how do you think the ground felt? If you can just think about that parade going, you've got these stallions coming in. You've got people marching. They're in their armor. Think about what is the earth doing around that parade? Literally. It starts to shake, doesn't it? And it's moving. So that tells you the power even is over the earth in this sense, right? These people have power over everything. And they're showing the Judaic people, if you challenge us, you are going to be trampled. Can you hear it? Can you feel that in that parade? This isn't a homecoming parade. This is a make sure you know who I am parade. And you stay on your place. Now the challenge is, in our own country in the last couple of years, we've heard talk of military might parades, haven't we? People wanting to have a military might parade to show their power. That's that type of parade. Make no bones about it. That is not the parade of Christ. That's the parade of power and oppression and suppression. So these are the challenges that we have to deal with when we talk about this, Palm Sunday. Versus the parade of palms. What are the characteristics? Hope, we talked about these, didn't we? Hope, faith, compassion, awareness of humanity. Do you think anybody on those war stallions or riding in the royal, I don't know if they're called stages at that time, whatever they were called, cared anything about the humanity of the people around that parade? Probably not, right? But if you enter on a donkey, what happens with the humanity? Is it touchable or untouchable? Touchable, right? We even have the moment, right, during Holy Week, where somebody reaches out and grabs Jesus. And what happens? The healing, right? And what's great about that moment to me is, do you remember what Jesus said to the person that was healed? Say it out loud, Laura.
Your faith has made you well.
Not, and I mean not, look, I healed you. Your faith has made you well. That's a huge, important statement to listen to. And that's what this parade is about. This parade, where Jesus comes in on a donkey because you all matter. When you're riding a donkey, now I've never ridden a donkey personally, but I can't imagine you're cruising at a vapor speed, right? You're kind of going, right? And you can see everybody. You can actually feel everybody around you. I think that's very intentional in Jesus' choice. Now, what's funny is go, and here's an assignment. Go this week and read Matthew's version of this, because it's very humorous. See if you can find Jesus' first rodeo trick. It's in Matthew's version of the Palms, of the entry into Jerusalem. Do you want to hear what it is? It's one of my favorite things. So Jesus says to the followers, hey, go grab me a colt and a donkey. And Matthew doesn't change the translation or the interpretation. So when they come back, he brings him a colt and donkey and he rides them both in. Can you imagine what it looked like? Woohoo! One foot on the donkey, one foot on the colt, right? That's the way it kind of reads. I'm telling you, go read it, it's fun. See, the Bible is fun. But it also tells you, if nothing else,
follow Luke's interpretation of it.
it's what's that?
Follow Luke's interpretation. Usually, if you want historical artifacts to be found, like that one man who was an atheist,
Luke,
but then got
Yep.
converted.
and Luke is going to be your inclusive version, right? I mean, Luke is much more inclusive than any of the other gospel writers. And actually, Luke looks towards, which is kind of interesting in its own self, towards the compassionate entry of women into power. He never goes completely, but he's there, right? So
He's doing his best for the time.
he does a great job with it. Luke is my favorite gospel, right? So I try to be really careful when I talk about it because I'll go on a rant. So I got to cut you off there, Aiden, because then I'm done. But this is exactly what we have to do. Is these kind of characteristics are the ones that, in a world that we live in, are these the characteristics that are raised up to be modeled, or flip it back? Or are these the characteristics that get lifted up to be modeled?
The first one.
These? Yep, I think so too. I think if they weren't, now you can go to the next one. If they were these, we wouldn't have the leadership we have right now. The candidates we have, not let me say that. We wouldn't have the narcissism and the power mongering and all of that. We wouldn't cheer boldly for bullies. I'm very passionate about this because this is the problem. When we claim, and this is why we have to hear the stories of John Lewis. We have to hear the stories of the MLKs, the Gandhis, the Bonhoeffers, the Mertens. We got to listen to those stories because they tell us a narrative of how to be the children of God and know that we have to stand up when we find violence or vile acts. We cannot proclaim or go along with the ride. It is unacceptable. Because when we do that, we jump into the parade of empire. But the parade of palms says to us all, you matter. You are worthy. The parade of palms, there's no one individual that's illegal. The parade of palms tells us that we have a voice and you need to use it. Use it for good. Use it to proclaim the good news. And the good news is that there's always hope. There's always a bit ability to have faith. And you can always be compassionate. One of my favorite Mother Teresa quotes is, not all of us can do great things, but we can all do things with great love. that will make a difference. If we follow the parade of palms, that will be the tipping point for us. Because right now we're in a scary time in our culture, in our time. We see the ugliness of power struggles. We see probably for the first time since the civil rights era, rights being stripped away at a huge and quick pace. And we have a voice that has to stand up. But we have to do it in a way, and here's the tricky part, right? If we're going to enter the palms, we have to do it in the way Christ would teach us to do it. And that's with compassion and grace for those who we stand against as well. That's what John Lewis did. Did you see the mistake? I said he was 18 at Selma, he was 25. That's a humbling gig to get it going with this. I've had too much stuff going through my head. He was 25. But the one thing that John Lewis did always, even in that sit-in that he held in Congress, and he said, we cannot just say we're leaders and not be leading, right? He did it with compassion for the others. By the grace of God, I'm on my flight home from Atlanta Saturday, and I'm sitting in the airplane, and this wonderful African-American woman sits next to me, and we take off, and we're in this little plane. And this little plane does what when turbulence hits? Right? I mean, just like that. And that poor lady was like, just started to freak out. I mean, she started fanning herself as much as she could, right? And so I thought, hey, I'm coy. So I started talking to her. And it's like, hey, well, tell me what you do, da-da-da, right? And everything else. And I'm thinking, she has no clue what I'm doing. I thought I was real slick. By the end of the conversation, we're about ready to land, and she says, thanks for distracting me. I knew you were doing that. And I said, well, you know, I thought I was slick about it. But during the course of our conversation, guess what she told me? And then she showed me. She knew John Lewis personally. And showed me a video of her interviewing him, right? And because she was a journalist. And she tells me this story, and I couldn't wait to get here to share with you guys. I said, okay, and I don't know if I want to know this. Please tell me what he's like in real life, you know. And she said, John Lewis is the most genuine person you'll ever meet in your life. Everything he did in Congress was because he was looking at the betterment of the world, not the betterment of himself. And I thought, you know how cool it is when your heroes live up to what you have them in your head? And the reason I showed that video is because John Lewis entered on a donkey, always. And he got beat, and still entered on a donkey. He didn't get beat and get on his pulpit and say how victimized he was, or how broken he was, and how nobody on earth had been treated as bad as him. No. He got on his donkey, and he said, we're going to care for these people and change the world. You guys hear me say this often, and you'll hear me say it a lot, you poor freshmen, because you're going to get it for 3 more years. You have a voice and a choice. You can go along with it, or you can make a difference. Never let anybody stifle your voice. Because you saw those ages of John Lewis's actions, it's right in you guys' age range. And what's interesting is maybe the most important quality, and it's funny because I didn't write it here, and I hadn't even thought about it until Lorna brought it up, was that John Lewis had empathy for all the people who were hurting. He had the ability to care for those people. So when we close it out, this is a quote. I told you you're going to get a lot of Gandhi over the next couple weeks, right? Not only am I reading this new book, I'm taking a deep dive into Gandhi and his thoughts on nonviolence. And you can ask my daughter, who's sitting right there. Her dad's a little OCD when he gets something in his craw. So life to me would lose all of its interest if I felt I could not attain perfect love on this earth. After all, what truly matters is that our capacity for loving is ever expanding. Now, Gandhi is amazing in that quote because he wants to know that he can achieve perfect love, but in the next sense, he's let you know that it's never achievable because it's constantly expanding. We're constantly growing in our understanding of love. And then I just found this picture with this quote, and I thought, oh God, I gotta share that, right? The day the power of love overrules the love of power, the world will finally know peace. Guys, most of you have been with me for a year now. I believe that in my whole heart. That's exactly where we have to get to. Where we care more about who's sitting next to us than our bank accounts. That we care more about the broken than we do about legality. That we are strong enough to understand that just because it's legal doesn't mean it's moral. We're seeing that play out in Texas over and over again right now with the immigration laws. Challenge yourself to get to that point where the power of love overwhelms you. And then to close with Oscar again, there are many things that can be only seen through the eyes of those that have cried, meaning the suffering. Let those eyes guide you. Recognize where you've had privilege and use that privilege to change the course of the world. Use your privilege to give others privilege. Be the one that enters on a donkey, not on a war horse. Choose the proper parade. Nyla's not here, so. Lauren, do you want to close us out with a prayer?
Sure.
Nothing, I'm gonna put you on the spot now.
Okay.
You're big time now. You are an exceptional Presbyterian.
Let us pray. Merciful God, you walk with us every day of our lives. Teach us here how to walk with others, how to share in their pain, to share in their joys, and to seek your peace. As we go into this Holy Week, let us not avoid the suffering and look to Easter, but remember that it is only in living through suffering that we come to truly appreciate the peace that can come after. Be with us all during this week. Bless us as we leave here today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you guys. A wonderful dialogue and discussion. Of course, next week you're not here in class. If you're on campus though, hit me up. We can have kind of an informal. Are you making fun of me, Jim?
That could be me.
Lena likes it when I say hip thing, right? No, I'd be glad to have an informal kind of get together at Week's house, maybe have a pizza or something and conversate. So
Yeah.
yeah, our
It's all Lee's fault.
I think our what?
I think I pushed the button.
Oh, did you? Okay. Well, that's a good time to say goodbye. Lorna, thank you for, I put you on the spot, so I appreciate you doing that. Thank you guys for everything. Hey, everybody, wish Ryan good well.
Not as hard, man, John.